In this video, we're diving into a topic that I've been wanting to discuss, and it just so happens to be making waves in the gaming industry news. The skyrocketing costs of making games and how it's affecting us as players. From bloated budgets to creative risks, there's a lot to unpack here, so let's get into it. First up, let's talk about graphics. According to a report from Tom's Hardware, industry insiders are saying that the push for cutting-edge visuals in AAA games is becoming way too expensive. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars just to make a single game look photorealistic. And while those jaw-dropping visuals are cool and impressive, they are driving up development costs to the point where studios are struggling to break even, unless if they sell millions of copies. But here's the thing. Not every game needs to look like a Hollywood blockbuster. Sure, it's impressive, but is it worth the risk? Especially when smaller studios with tighter budgets are creating amazing experiences without breaking the bank. Think about it. Some of the most beloved games in recent years, titles like Hades, Celeste, or Stardew Valley, they don't rely on hyper-realistic graphics. Instead, they focus on tight gameplay, compelling stories, and unique art styles, and honestly, that's what makes them stand out. Speaking of risks, let's talk about game scope. In an interview with Bounding Into Comics, Ken Levine, the director of BioShock and BioShock Infinite, pointed out that as games get bigger, they also get riskier, and not in a good way. He said that the pressure to create massive open worlds or endlessly replayable games has led to creative stagnation. Instead of taking bold, innovative risks, studios are playing it safe, sticking to formulas that they know will sell. And honestly, it's starting to feel like we're getting the same game over and over again, just with a different coat of paint. Even Obsidian, the studio behind Avowed, has acknowledged this issue. In an article from PC Gamer, they explain that by opting out of an open world design, they can focus on delivering more meaningful choices and tighter pacing. And honestly, that's a breath of fresh air. It's a reminder that bigger isn't always better. Sometimes a smaller, more focused experience can leave a much bigger impact. Now, let's talk about Grand Theft Auto 6. According to GameSpot, analysts are predicting that GTA 6 could cost as much as $100 at launch. And honestly, that's not surprising. Rockstar's games are known for their massive budgets and even bigger returns. But here's the kicker. Some analysts believe that GTA 6 could actually help the gaming industry rebound in 2025. How? Well, for starters, GTA 6 is expected to be a huge financial success, potentially bringing in billions of dollars. That kind of revenue could give the industry a much-needed boost, especially after a rocky few years. But it also raises questions. If GTA 6 succeeds, will other studios feel pressured to follow the same formula? And will that lead to even higher game prices across the board? It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, GTA 6 could set a new standard for what's possible in a game. On the other hand, it could reinforce the idea that only massive, high-budget games can succeed, which isn't great for creativity or diversity in the gaming industry. Speaking of creativity, let's talk about new IPs versus established franchises. Right now, the industry is heavily reliant on well-known franchises like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, and FIFA, for example. And don't get me wrong, these are all good games in their own respect. But there is a downside to this reliance. When studios pour all their resources into sequels and spin-offs, it leaves little room for new ideas. And that's a problem because some of the most groundbreaking games in history, titles like The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Portal or Dark Souls, they all started as new IPs. I know Legend of Zelda is a stretch, but Breath of the Wild was a huge departure from the typical Zelda games of the past. They took risks, tried something different, and ended up changing the gaming landscape. But here's the thing, new IPs are hard to sell. They don't have the built-in fan base of a Grand Theft Auto or a Halo, which makes them a tougher sale for publishers. And in an industry where budgets are ballooning, that's a big risk. I look back at what I just said. Zelda was probably not a good example. But Hades, we'll use Hades because that was a brand new IP and it was extremely successful, revitalizing the roguelite genre of games. So how does all of this affect us players? Well, for starters, higher development costs often mean higher game prices. We've already seen some AAA titles hitting the 700 million mark for budgets, and with GTA 6 potentially pushing that to 2 billion, it's clear that the trend isn't slowing down. But it's just not about the money. The pressure to recoup these massive budgets also means fewer risks and less innovation. Studios are less likely to experiment with new ideas when they're betting hundreds of millions of dollars on a single project. And that's a shame because some of the most memorable games come from taking creative leaps. It also affects the kind of games that we get. If studios are too focused on making the next Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed, we might miss out on the next Hollow Knight or Disco Elysium, and that's a loss for everyone. By the way, are you enjoying this video? Consider supporting me and my content by subscribing to the channel. Maybe even hit that like button while you're down there. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Now, let's talk about solutions. How can the industry tackle this problem without sacrificing quality or creativity? There are a ton of solutions that I could brainstorm, but let's focus on a couple ideas to start. Embrace smaller, more focused games. Not every game needs to be a 100-hour open-world epic. Smaller, more polished experiences can still deliver incredible value, and they're often more affordable to produce. I would even say that the gaming audience only has so much time to play so many 100-hour epics, right? So in between, we'd like to get some more maybe 10-hour gaming experiences or 20 hours. Anyhow, on to the next one. Invest in new tools and tech. Instead of pouring all their resources into graphics, studios can help develop better tools to help streamline production. Things like AI-assisted development or procedural generation could help reduce costs without compromising quality. This is usually an ongoing effort within game studios. I can speak from personal experience, but that leads me into my next solution. Support mid-sized studios and hold on to your staff. AAA games dominate the conversation, and they operate in a wasteful manner, throwing more bodies at problems versus efficiency. There's a whole world of mid-sized studios creating innovative, unique experiences. By supporting these developers, we can encourage a healthier, more diverse gaming ecosystem. And by keeping teams smaller and making mindful hiring choices, you can prevent layoffs and maintain a team of experienced devs familiar with all the in-house tools and pipelines, which equals more efficiency in game development. And the last one I'll mention here is take risks on new IPs. Publishers need to be willing to take chances on new ideas. Maybe that means smaller budgets for experimental projects or more support for indie developers. Whatever the solution, it's clear that the industry needs to make more chances if it wants to keep evolving. We constantly see indie games trying new things and innovating, and whenever a new idea hits a home run, you eventually see a AAA rendition of that game. At the end of the day, the gaming industry is at a crossroads. The push for bigger, better, and more expensive games is unsustainable, and it's starting to show. But by embracing new ideas and focusing on what really matters, there's still hope for a brighter future. What do you think? Are you okay with paying more for games if it means better quality? Or would you rather see studios that take a step back and focus on innovation? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And that wraps it up. Remember to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more great gaming content. Also, consider watching this recommended video right here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.